Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's web conference. My name is Devyani Dey and I'll be serving as your moderator today. You'll be hearing a session from Sergey Chubarov. He's a Microsoft certified trainer, consultant, public speaker, Microsoft MVP in Azure, and a certified ethical hacker with over 10 years of experience. He's currently based in Russia. He'll be addressing the topic on this very timely subject, AZ-103, monitoring, data protection, and network traffic management. Before that, I'm going to put a quick poll and I would request all of you to kindly participate in the poll and let me know if I'm clearly audible to everyone. I request all the participants to please let us know if I'm audible. Thank you so much. And furthermore, if you face any audio or a video issue during the session, please feel free to drop in your queries in the Q&A panel and I'm here to answer your question. Now, I would like to turn today's event to your presenter. Sergey, you can take it from here.
Sure. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Sure.
Can you see it?
Yes, it's visible now.
All right, thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. Today is the fourth day of our training course about Azure administration. And as usual, that's me again. My name is Sergey. I'm an infrastructure team lead for the company that does implementation, and I'm a trainer as well, MVP, certified as Azure expert, and not only Azure, but some other vendors like AWS. If you need to talk to me and reach me, here's my email, so you can drop me an email if you need it. But this session, as usual, is not about me, but the session is about you. So we'll talk about Azure again. At the beginning, as usual, we'll talk about certification in general, because every day we have new people and we need to fill this gap about their knowledge and certification. Then part B will be about technical content, and we'll talk about Azure here and from technical perspective. And the part C, we will talk about some practice questions. But of course, part B will be the biggest one, as usual. All right, so let's talk about part A and Azure administration certification. Maybe you know, and especially if you attend not the first time here, that Microsoft changed their certification last year, and now their certification based on a job role, not just a product like Office 365 or Exchange or something like that, but based on job role, what people do on their job, and certification based on that. And we have number of certifications. Azure Administrator, one of those, and I would say that's a primary certification for IT Pro. But you also have Azure Developer, Azure Solution Architect, DevOps Engineer, Security Administrator, and so on. So now certification, they're a bit different. So, and based on job role. And the first level for certification is called Azure Fundamentals. And by the way, Fundamentals is not a job role. That's just an introduction to Azure in general. And in this level, you don't need to know a lot about Azure. This level is more for people who are not technical. It's not really technical exam. It's more about what do you know about Azure in general and about cloud in general. Next level is associate. And associate, that's the technical level. You need to know from the technical side Azure. And not only know, but know how to implement. That's not theory. That's more about how to do. In our certification, Azure Administrator Associate is on that level. How to implement, how to configure. And the last level, expert. On this level, you have to know much more in how to design. You have to know different solutions, not only administration, but development as well, how to build a solution, how to plan the solution. And solution usually includes not only virtual machines, like virtual machines and network that we usually manage in our administrative exam, but containers, web apps, and other stuff. So expert level, this level is more complicated. If you want to become Azure Fundamental certified, it's not a big deal. You just need to have some core knowledge about cloud and Azure services, and pass one exam called AZ-900, and you'll be Azure Fundamentals certified. But Azure Administrator is much more complicated, and here you have to know more technical stuff and pass one exam, AZ-103. So what's on this exam? What this exam is all about? First of all, this exam contains test questions. You need to answer a number of questions. Usually, we have around 60 questions in our exams, but this exam contains labs, hands-on labs that you need to complete. So this exam is performance-based. And because of labs, you'll have less number of questions, maybe 30, but you'll have labs as well. And that's a big challenge because from my perspective, exam is not really hard, but it's a really big deal to manage time. It's really challenging to be on time. It takes lots of time to do this lab. So please be aware of that. When you start your exam, you'll have around 20-25 questions first. And when you answer your questions, in the background, your lab will be deployed. And after your question, you have a performance-based lab, and you have to complete a couple of tasks, maybe around 15, a couple of labs and around 15 tasks there. And just be aware that it will take lots of time. I know lots of people who didn't pass the exam because of time, not because the exam was hard, because exam content was hard, but because of time. And after lab, you have a couple more questions, maybe 6, maybe 10, because Microsoft needs to evaluate your lab, and they need time for that. So you'll have more questions after lab. Please plan that. this exam is a big challenge because of timing. All right, so you'll have lab there, and my suggestion there, for the sake of time, don't wait for your instances to be deployed when you do a task. When you start to deploy something and start to, for instance, virtual machine or VPN gateway, don't wait. Just go to another task. If you have a task like create a VPN gateway with some name and something like that, click configure and move on. Don't wait for the stuff to be finished, for this operation to be finished. And be very accurate with names, because they check your lab, validate your lab automatically, and if names don't match, so you will not get your score. And maybe the beginning, maybe in the end, you will have case studies. Case studies is test questions. When you have a case about company, and you need to answer a number of questions about this case, and this type of questions, they may be tricky when you start to read the whole case. You may be confused. So my suggestion here: don't read the whole case. It takes lots of too much time. So read the question first in your case, and in your question you'll find the reference to the part of the case that you need to answer this question. Don't read the whole case, just read the part. Okay. And in exam, we have number of domains. We have 5 domains. And as you can see, today we are talking about 4th domain. Let me show you my modules. So, a couple of words about preparation. Please don't forget about microlearning. We have a portal called Learn. So you'll find lots of microlearning courses there. Online courses like you do right now, and instructor-led training when you can learn something from a trainer in class and do some labs as well. Some additional resources. And so now we're on module 4, and we do monitoring, data protection, and network traffic. So that's a part of networking. So we go back. So that's a part of networking and part of storage here. So today is module number 4. And in this module, usually I do everything on live demos, and today it won't be an exclusion, but for this session, I will use slides more than often. All right, so let me talk about our topics, and our first topic called Azure Monitor. And let's see what Azure Monitor is. Azure Monitor, that's a service that collects different logs, metrics, and so on in one place. So just one service that collects from different sources metrics and logs for you to know what is going on. So that's this. Let's try to call it a single pane of glass. It's not a single pane of glass, of course, but that's the a point where you can find the service, where you can find lots of information from different services about the alerts, about the logs, about information they have. So let me just show it to you really quickly. I'm going to jump demo. And I'm gonna go to Azure Monitor. And here, let me zoom in a bit. So here, I have an Azure Monitor and different sources here. I have some sort of wizard here, and if I click Explore Metrics, it will send me to Metrics. But let me start from the beginning. So on the left, I have number of menus, and if I click here, Activity Log, here in Activity Log, I can collect information from different services about my activities with them. 3 minutes ago, let me zoom out here. So 3 minutes ago, list of storage account keys. List of storage account keys. It wasn't my particular activity, but it was activity in Azure. Start virtual machine 15 minutes ago. Deallocate virtual machine. Write tasks, and so on. So that's an activity in Azure. Maybe my activity, like add an activity, or activity in Azure by service. So that's what is going on from the administration perspective. So what admin tasks were initiated in Azure. And I can see it here. I can play with filters here. Let me see something, not last 6 hours, but last month, and click apply. And we have them a lot. Oh, something red. Health event update. What's going on here? Start to work slow. And find again. Alright, so health event activated. There's no red. Click here. So I can see the event. It looks fine. I know why it's red. I don't see any errors here. Interesting. Anyway. Let's see. So audit events, create and update security roles. So I have lots of events here. So that's an activity log. Let me skip alerts for this time. Let me go to metrics. And here on metrics, I can create some charts based on performance metrics and other metrics. So if I click add a resource, I want to say resource type will be, let's choose virtual machines, and let's try AZ103 resource group. So I have number of virtual machines. Let me click this one, click apply. So I can see metrics of these machines. Let me scroll down, and let's play with percentage of CPU as usual. So I can see my percentage of CPU. I can play with different type of dashboards here. Like, I think it's the best one, and I can pin it on my desktop here. So if I click pin to current dashboard, it was pinned. Let's see my dashboard. Here we go. Let me just put it here. That looks great. So with Azure Monitor, I can create some graphics here, and some charts. And let me just go back to my monitor. So in metrics, I can find the metrics by resources, and I can visualize this metrics and create something interesting from charting perspective. Then I'm going to logs, and that's the biggest topic here. By the way, we have it as a separate topic, log analytics here. But let me talk about that here. Log analytics, what is that? Maybe you remember if you worked with Azure for a long time. So we had a service in Azure called Operation Management Suite. Operation Management Suite, or OMS, just an OMS. So Log Analytics, that's a service that substitutes OMS and OMS based on Log Analytics, by the way. Log Analytics, that's the service that collects logs from different sources and store them, process them, and you can use queries to make query to your logs and see them from different perspectives, and then you can use them from different perspectives. So information collected to my workspace. Let me show how to do that. So first, let me just get rid of that because Monitor is just a visualization tool. But first, I have to create a workspace. I'm going to go to Log Analytics, Log Analytics Workspace, and I need to add a new workspace. I already have them, but let me just show you how to add. So just create a new workspace, and the only thing that you need to configure is a pricing tier, and nowadays we have just one pricing tier. We had a couple of them before, so we could price per gigabyte, per solutions, I think, but now it's just per gigabyte. It's a new cost model. So let me use my existing one called Hybrid Security. And here in my Hybrid Security, I need to do a couple of things. So I'm gonna go to my workspace summary, and you can see here on the workspace summary, I have my dashboard that looks similar like OMS dashboards, old OMS dashboards. So if I click here to add, it will send me to a marketplace with the solution. So it looks like the old OMS, but new dashboard. I don't want to say that we use it really extensively. So if you don't want to work with this workspace summary, it's fine. All right, let's see. But if you wish, you can just create your charts here. We did before in OMS, so it's fine. It still works, but not so popular. All right. So if I go to logs, I will see the same logs that we saw in Azure Monitor. So it's not really necessary to do it from here. You can do it from Azure Monitor. But what is really important here is solutions. Here, we need to add new solutions, and a solution will start to collect information. If I want to collect changes about my files and registry settings, I need change tracking solution. I need to add change tracking solution. If I want to have information about Office 365, I need Office 365 solution. So different solution, they can collect different information. And when I click the solution, let's click to change tracking. And in the solution, I may have workspace sources, and these sources will collect information. So if I go to my sources, I can see from which VMs I collect this information, change tracking. Not from every VM, but anyway. From which storage accounts. I don't collect this information from storage accounts. So in each solution, we have sources, and from sources, the solutions collect information and store it in Log Analytics. And we can have an access to Log Analytics not only from the workspace, but from Azure Monitor as well. But generally, Azure Monitor only displays information to us. But underlying service is Log Analytics. So let me jump back to Monitor. Oh, by the way, let me quickly show how to configure our Log Analytics to collect information. Let me go to data sources. Go to data sources. And let me not here. Not here. And that's our resource group. They're connected. Let me try to find a solution first. Let me pick it up, Windows Firewall solution, and go to Furnace Properties. No, I'm here. Interesting, because usually in a solution we had an interface where we can see how to connect sources. Now it was deprecated, I guess, because I don't see it right now. Okay, so let me go back to my Azure Monitor, and let me go to Log Analytics. Let me just play a bit with this with these queries. You can see my previous queries. Let me just click Run, and here I can see my free space of my drives, my G drive and my D drive. Let me zoom in a bit. No, it's too much. So that's a query that I created before to just visualize how can I get information about my D drives. Let me see some charts here. It can create automatically some charts and different charts. Try that one. Not the same. How about this? No. So it was the best one. Go to table by. Here, let's try to read this query, and let me zoom in. So first, I will work with type of data, and my type of data will be performance data. So it's called perf. What is really good about this query language? Let me open up another tab. I'm going to show you. If I start to type something like perf, it suggests me the other options. So it's like auto completion bars here. So I can use perf, or I can use something like security alert, security events, and it says, so I type security events and ask me where, for instance, computer, try equals SRV node 01. I guess I need to type the domain name and click run. Now let me zoom out, and so I hear some security events from the computer name SRV node 02. So let me go back a bit. As you can see here, of course, if you prefer use just Portal, maybe this language may be confusing for you, but let me just read it really quickly. So first, it's a type of our log. So that's performance log. Here's security events and so on. Then we use pipe and where. And so where is filtering, like on SQL. Oh, by the way, this language is really close to SQL. And then we use different filters, like object name equals, and we use 2 equal signs, logical disk, and counter name equals free space. And if I need to summarize it, so let me just show you the difference. For this counter, let me zoom out again. I have summarization by instance name. So as you can see here, I have only 2 instances here, so G drive and D drive. But if I go to my second query, I have a number of events, and I can scroll down, because I don't have summarization. But with summarization, I have only 2 of them, and I summarize by free space and the counter value. So I summarize the free space in the counter. Then I can apply some additional, if I wish, I can apply some additional restrictions and filter it. Let me just show you if I get rid of any other stuff. I think if I put this sign, yep. I'm gonna click run. Nope, doesn't work. It has to work. Try again. No query. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, back. I don't have any filtering anymore, so now I have here. Now I have all of my computers without filters. But what I did, I filtered by instance name, and an instance name has this instance name. So the instance name has to contain some symbols that I want to see, and the free space has to be, so the instance name has to contain, I think it means 2 symbols, and one of the symbol is this one. So I want to get rid of instances like hard disk volume 5, hard disk volume 1, totals. I just want to have C drives, G drives, and so on. And an additional filter where the free space is less than 20%. And then just sort it. Let me just run it. And you can see now I have only this instance. Okay, so generally speaking, you don't need to read it for the exam, and you don't need to write it for the exam, but that's a quite huge topic in Azure Monitoring, and I will show you that we'll use it in alerts. So just you need to be aware of that. If you work with Azure as an administrator, you need to be aware of that. All right, so let me jump from here, but I will go back to logged analytics a bit later because we'll talk about alerts as well. So let me jump from here to service health. And here you may see some issues with Azure itself. Of course, it's a cloud service and nobody's perfect, and you may have some outages on Azure, and you may see so if it has any issue. So do we have any planned maintenance? Nope, everything is fine. And we have workbooks here, but it's just new functionality, so you won't see it on the exam. Workbooks, that's just if I let me just click here, workbook. Hey. So the workbook is just a collection of pre-configured metrics with different charts and counters and so on. So just a pre-configured interface that you may start to use, and you may start you may play with that here, and you may edit this book. And as you can see here, we have a number of stuff here. So some counters, charts like I cannot see right now, and if you wish, you can edit them. They are pre-configured, but you can do them manually yourself. This is a bit new functionality, workbooks, but it doesn't work well at the moment. It's in preview. So that's a general section. You can also have insights in your Azure Monitor. For some of the services, for some of the services that are more for developers, like application insights. If you go to my application insights, you may create here application insights, and what application insight here, in application insight, it's a code that you may paste in your app, and this code will monitor and show here the insights about your app that you develop. But let me go to virtual machines because it's more for administrators. And so I see some information about my virtual machines. I can see 2 virtual machines. Distribution is unknown, I guess. Or state is unknown here. Yeah, state is unknown. Let me click to performance. And I'm gonna see some performance counters. My CPU utilization is fine. Memory is fine either. So I can see some graphics here. I can play with charts. And also it may show me that I think that I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it. A map. And the map, it may show you dependencies between services. It's quite old functionality we have in OMS. And this functionality dependency map can show you dependencies between services. If you have 3-tiered applications, for instance, you may see dependencies between services. So it sees a communication between virtual machines and what services communicate to each other, and can make a build dependency between them. All right. I don't have them pre-configured. So that's about insights really briefly. And from this monitor in general, let me show you some recommendations. And this recommendation is called Advisor. Click Advisor. And on Advisor, I may see some recommendations by Microsoft, and what is really good, these recommendations are free because we have a popular different provider, and a different provider asks for money for many recommendations. And here, these recommendations are free. So let's see the recommendations. A recommendation about high availability. So some number of recommendations: enable self-delete, enable virtual machine backup, and so on. Let me click Tick security. And here, number of security recommendations like sensitive data and SQL database should be classified. So I have SQL, and I guess in the SQL I have some fields that are sensitive, that contain sensitive data like phone numbers, email numbers, names, and so on, or maybe passport numbers. Vulnerabilities in your SQL database should be remediated. Oh, really? That's not about this course, not about security, so I don't want to go deeply here. But it's found some vulnerabilities in my database. That's my cleaning database, and it's a data exfiltration data spillage. And I think because I have number of sensitive data in my database, and I don't protect this sensitive data. So let's go to cost. So some recommendation based on cost management, right size, or shut down underutilized virtual machines. Let's see. So this machine, what is the recommendation? Recommended rule: Azure CPU less than 5%. So this machine is underutilized, so it works 24/7, but I don't work it extensively. And I also have public IP addresses that are not associated with any Azure virtual machines, so it means that these IP addresses just exist, and I pay for them. And this IP, I get this IP for demo for our webinar, and I recommend to remove it. All right, so that's called Azure Advisor, and I can get some insights from Azure. What can I improve to save some money, to increase security, to make it more performant and redundant? All right, let me go back to monitor. Let me click here. So we talk about monitor, and I already talked about log analytics. And let me show you how to create alerts that can alert me if something goes wrong. Let me click alerts, and here I have number of alerts here. So let me click some alerts. Alert here. That's my events. That's events. Percentage of committed memory in use. Windows log service hell, and so on. These alerts are pre-created, so that's from my VM Insights. As you can remember, I enabled my VM Insights for my virtual machine. I showed you some charts here, but with VM Insights, I also got a number of alerts. So I have a number of alerts here for my virtual machines with different severities. But generally speaking, it looks like I'm fine. Let's see. So average logical disk space, seconds per read. If I click here, see what's going on. So threshold for logical disk performance counter has been exceeded. What about, by the way, severity 1? I don't have severity 0, but percentage of commit memory in use. It was resolved, but let's see. So yeah, counter has been exceeded. But now I'm fine. Looks like now. So that's default rules that I have in my Azure Monitor because I enable my insights. But it's really sometimes it's configured. A topic may be confusing how to create your own rules. So let me go through this process and create some new rules. Let me go to new rule. Click select. And it's quite long. Come on. Okay, so I can see my subscription, and if I just click here, and everything that I see here, I can't open it up. I only can see my subscription. I click done, and if I click condition, I can see some types of signals that based on my resource called subscription. So all administrative operations, I'll create a role assignment, but that's it. Of course, I have lots of operations, new password websites, but I'm not sure that I really need that. So that's my signal type, activity log only, and the monitor service is activity log, a different activity log. It's not that I need. So let me go back. Let me go to my resource again. And let me wait again. I know why it's so slow. Sometimes it can be slow, but usually it's much better. So if I want to see my to create alert based on, for instance, virtual machine performance, I have to go here, filter by resource, and find my resource, my virtual machines. And here my subscription will expand, and then I can see my resources. So let me click here, my virtual machine, click done, and click conditions again. And now I can see my metrics of my virtual machine, of the resource I call virtual machine. So just be aware of that. This interface may confuse you a little, so just be accurate here. Let me choose percentage of CPU. Here I can see my CPU load, and I can create a new alert based on my threshold. And threshold may be static or dynamic. Static is when I can choose just a static value, and I want to my alert based on this static value, like if average load CPU more than 80% and aggregated in a period of 5 minutes, and it will check my load every single minute, and if last 5 minutes average load greater than 60%, then give me an alert. So that's a static value. I would call the classic. We used to create alerts based on the static values, but we also have dynamic, and the dynamic is when Azure decides itself what is average. So we don't have fixed number. Azure will decide itself. And when greater than average, it will alert me. And here, I need to configure sensitivity. So when sensitivity is medium, it means that Azure has to have a not huge, but let me call it medium is the best word. So Azure has to have a medium difference between the average and current state to have an alert. So it means that it won't, if difference between average and current state will be not really big, that's different would not be really big, then medium will not alert. But if I change my sensitivity to high, in case of high, then it will start to alert if the difference between current state and the average state will not really big, and it will alert really quickly. And of course, I can choose low sensitivity, and in this case, it will alert me only in a really big difference between my average state and my current state. So in this case, in case of Azure, we can use also dynamic threshold, not only static. So as you can see here, by the way, in the description for this particular counter, it says, so whenever percentage CPU is greater than dynamic threshold at least 4 times. So for instance, if my average is 10%, then it has to be 40 to alert in low sensitivity. In medium sensitivity, no, not here. Oh, sorry, I confused that. No, it's not about that. Greater than dynamic threshold for at least 4. Oh, it has to see 4 times in this period. So sorry, I missed that. But I can change it to, for instance, 1 if I wish, and it will alert quite soon. Not after 4 times of observing this difference, but much faster once. All right, so that's about how to create a candidate. Let me just quickly create. Just percent CPU. Let me choose my static value. Click done. And then I need to go to actions. And in actions, I need to create the action group and associate some action rules if I wish. But before that, let me click add again. And let me scroll down to show you that we don't have all the counters we may need. For instance, if you want to have a counter about free space of your logic of your drives, we don't see it here. We don't have it here. And if you want to have counter about memory, there's no counters here. So not every single counter here. And you may need to use something else. So let me create the whole alert, and then I will go and create a new, the second alert based on the different counters. So let me create a new action group. new action group. Let's call it notify, and so let me action name email. Click in. So I'll email to, I don't care to whom. So let me just leave defaults here. Click OK. And let me wait till my action will be created. Click done. So I can scroll down. That's generally it. So if percentage of CPU is greater than 80%, it will trigger the email notification. I can do some other actions. Let me just show you. For instance, action types, Azure Function, Logic Apps, Webhooks, automation. So I can do some stuff to automate my activities, but I will notify, just notify. So that's the rule that I can create. I think I need to do something else. What else? Oh, I need to give a name. And that's it. And I can create a rule. So I can create a rule like that. But let me close it. I said that I will show you how to use add account counters. Let me create a new rule. Click select. We can use not only native counters from virtual machine, but I would say the most common at this moment, the most common way how we create our alerts for virtual machines and other resources is log analytics. So I need to choose different resource. Log analytics workspace. Choose my workspace. Click done. Go to conditions again, and I will see different queries. So different pre-configured queries. All security activities, log on activity. Let's see if we have free space. Free space. Basic metrics. We have free space query here. Let me click here. And I can see my counter values, so I can configure it here on this interface in the similar manner. Got it. For instance, I can take my computer name. Let me take this one. Let me take the object name, logical disk. Instance name only CDFG, and a counter path. I'll leave it default. Source system, I think I don't need it. So I'm fine here, and I can configure it in the similar manner. So I can do it in this way with graphical interface, or if I have queries, I can create a manually. I can create a query manually. So I'm gonna go to custom log search, and I just have a search query here, and I'm gonna go and paste my query that I pre-create, and that same query, by the way, that I showed you before. Copy and paste here, and Then I would say, in this case, I want to see an alert. I want to see an alert based on number of results. So if I see any occurrences here, so if I have see any events, so threshold has to be greater than 1. So it means that if I have events about low disk space, please notify me. I can base it on my measurements, on my metrics, or I can base it on my number of results. So if I have any results, so if I have any hard drives that has free space less than 20, notify me. And I click down here. Then I can go to actions. So I select an action group. Click notify, click select, click done. And as you can see here, there's a different price associated with this type of log. It's much more expensive. So to change it, and I configure alert for my disk space in this way. All right, I hope it was informative and not really confusing. So let's move on. Let's move on from here. Let's talk about network monitor and Azure Monitor. That's quite a big topic. So that's why we spent a lot of time here. And let me jump from here to another topic called Network Watcher. And I think I need to show you some slides because Network Watcher is really good to show on slides as well. Network Watcher. So, Network Watcher. Network Watcher, that's a regional service that can provide you a way to troubleshoot your network. So if you have some problems with communication between virtual machines or between your services or to your service or from your service, you can use Network Monitor to realize what's going on. And we have a number of ways. How can we, first of all, we can visualize it here, and we can have number of diagnostics. How can we check what is going on? So first of all, we have IP flow diagnostics. With IP flow diagnostic, we can diagnose connectivity issues from or to the internet and from or to the environment. In this case, I can make sure that traffic is flowing to the internet or from the internet to my resources or to my on-prem environment in case of hybrid environment. If I have, for instance, VPN connectivity. NextHop. With NextHop, I can determine how my traffic flows. I mean, when I have some different routing policies, I can determine how my traffic flows and what will be the next hop for my virtual machine if it tries to connect to some IP address. Then I can have VPN diagnostics. I can diagnose, have diagnostics about my gateways and connectivity. So it may provide me some information about that. And by the way, maybe we'll see some information about connectivity that we configured yesterday. NSG flow logs. With NSG flow logs, we can analyze how our network security groups applied. And we can see in even Power BI what's going on with our security groups and what communications can be blocked by other network security groups. And connection troubleshooter. with connection troubleshooter, we can check connectivity between virtual machines, for instance, between source VM and destination VM. And in this case, we can configure what may goes wrong. Maybe it's network security groups, or maybe it's routes, or any other reasons. For instance, maybe firewalls. Something inside the virtual machine can block communications. So let me jump to my network watcher and show you some of those rules, some of those diagnostics. Let me go to my network watcher. And let me see, first show you topology. So let's see, AZ103. And here's my topology of my resource group. I can choose a particular network. Let me choose the smallest one. And here's my topology of my network. So I have a network, virtual network here, and I have a default subnet, and I have a VPN gateway. And I also have gateway subnet here. But if I wish to choose a different one, I have more resources here, so I can see, that's all of my resources here, my topology, and I can download my topology for the future use. Let me go to my diagnostic tools. Let's play with something. Let me go to my next hop, and let's try to see the next hop from this machine, and it's source IP 2.8.8.8.8, and click next hop. And I can see the next hop is internet, of course. But if I want to see a next hop from this machine to, for instance, yesterday we configured VPN between machines. And to be honest, I don't remember between which machine. I remember that this machine was one of those, but what other machine? I think Bastion host. And if I want to go to Bastion host, let's see what IP address it has. Bastion host. Let me try to guess. I think it has this IP address. I'm not sure about that. Let's see. Or maybe you can have an error. It's fine too. So next hop, no. Next hop, I don't have any next hops. Alright, let's try something else. So we tried also, I think from demo, from here, not from here, from dev, from this VM, access some other VM. Let's try the next hop from here. Because I remember configuring peering, but once again, I don't remember which IP addresses. Let's see. Oh, it looks like I was correct. So as you can see here, when I tried to connect from this VM to another VM, and it says the next hop virtual network peering. So you can see the next hop. Let's try something else. I can see network security. Let's go to here, and let's choose virtual machine. This one, and I don't have anything here. All right, Let's try to do this. What's going on? Oh, yeah, that's turned off. Let me pick up machine that's turned on. And I have to see my security groups so I can see all the rules that apply to my virtual machine. Of course, I can see it when I click the virtual machine, but here I can see more information about that, and I can see some overlaps here, and I can, if I have several network security groups, I will see all of those. And as you can see here, my sources, I can click, for instance, here, and I can see all the prefix for my virtual network, so it gives me a bit more information. And if I see my Azure load balancer, I can see my load balancer IPs. So that's a bit more informative than just a standard view in virtual machine. I can go to VPN troubleshooting. And let's see. Let me start my troubleshooting. Here, 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 here. Everything not here. Let's try. It may take time, so we'll go back to this a bit later. Packet. I already started. Please select storage container. Sorry. I need to store this information in storage account. Let me store it somewhere like here. All right, so let's start troubleshooting. So, okay, let's start. Let me jump to packet capture and just talk about that really quick, briefly. That's a packet capture, but this packet capture works on a level of virtual machine, on network adapter. It's just a sniffer, but from the Azure interface, from the Azure portal. But it doesn't do any magic. I mean, it works on a virtual machine level, not on the whole network. It doesn't capture magically traffic somewhere on the network. It just works from the virtual machine. And if virtual machine has some connectivity problems, then this network capture may help you. So just network capture. All right, let's see. Still running. It takes time, so let me just show you a connection troubleshoot. So here we can just check connectivity between two VMs. I believe this virtual machine turned off. Let me just pick up this one and try to play with different machine. Dev. And I want to choose a port. Let's try 8080 and pick check. And let's check in connectivity between two VMs by this port number. Let's go back to VPN troubleshooter. It's still in progress. It didn't show me anything here. Anyway. I need to be more patient. Okay, so that's about network watcher. With network watcher, we can troubleshoot our network. And here, let's take a quick break, and I will give the word to Devyani to talk about our connectivity questions and so on. So, Devyani?
Sergey takes a quick breather break. I would like to ask from the audience, how has been the audio-video experience so far? The question and the options will appear on your screens now. Thank you so much for your feedback. Just one more question before we get back to the main event. Please let us know has been the relevance of the content used in the workshop. Thank you so much for all your feedback. We consider these feedbacks for our upcoming sessions planning. So I would request all of you to keep participating with us through poll questions, or you can share your feedback through Q&A panel as well. There will be a couple of more questions towards the end of the session. I would really appreciate if all of you could participate on those as well. Now, I would like to hand over the session back to Sergey if he's available.
Sure. I see a question Q&A, so let me answer this question. So how to configure to find details of memory utilization for VM? Is it at Matrix or somewhere else? Can you please show? I guess details, he means what service consumes memory. The best way is to use log analytics for that. Let me just try to play with that. And by the way, that's the same. You ask me about how to see something with PowerShell. With PowerShell yesterday, I forget about that, but I found a solution for you anyway. Oh, how to see the domain name from in the virtual machine. I found a solution for you, so I will back to you via email soon. But let me try to play with memory now. So I'm gonna go to demo again. So I hope you can see my screen. Let me jump to monitor and virtual machines. and go to performance. And if I click to go to here, I can generally see what's going on, and of course I can see what's going on with my virtual machines, but I can click on my virtual machine here and click for view performance details, and that was about my hard drive. It's available memory, disk. You're interested in memory, so let's try to see what we also have with memory. And I don't have more details here, so it's just show me some averages and some maximums and so on. So if you want to see what service consumes, let's try to see log analytics. If I go to logs, let's try perf, where counter name equals what equals what? Bytes in use, I think it's something like that. Let's see perf first. Let's see perf. Click run. Oh, it doesn't show me. Let me show computer name. SRV node 02 contoso.com. Click run. Alright, so object name. I found the counter I need. Free space. I have too much pages here. So I need the object name. I don't remember how it's called. Maybe RAM, maybe memory. Let's try to find it. So I have logical disk first. I think object name called and what? Computer name and object name. Object name equals, I believe it equals called memory. Memory. I hope. So fingers crossed. Oh yeah. So I need to see available megabytes or something. Doesn't matter. I think it doesn't really matter. Or not. I don't need available. I think you want to know what memory, who consumes the memory. No, it shows only available megabytes. So because of available megabytes, you won't see who consumes the memory. I don't know the way how to see centrally what service consumes memory. Here, but what you can also try to do, collect any counters and try to find correlation between them. But what process consumes memory, I'm not sure that you can find it. We may also try to use search engine, of course. Azure monitor monitor process consume memory. App service usage, memory usage, how to see app service, Azure monitor, VM. Methods. How can I monitor VM usage in Azure? Understand health of your virtual machines. Extended metrics for Azure virtual machines. It may be somewhere here. So let's see. But I don't think you'll find the processes here. But may I also try to find where object name equals process, and maybe we have some type of objects. No, we don't have. So if you wish, we can dig it together. I didn't have this task before, but I don't see a way how to do it now. All right, so let me just go to data replication and backup. We already talked about data replication, so I don't want to talk a lot about that now. Data replication, because we already talked about that. Alras, Zeras, Jeras, so we talked about that yesterday. And let's jump to Azure backup. And we have a backup in Azure. It's quite an interesting topic here. If I click to here, go to here, dashboard, and I can configure backup. To do that, first I need to create a vault, recovery services vault, and click here. And here I have wizards about backup and site recovery. So what's the difference between backup and site recovery? Backup, it's when I want to archive something, and the site recovery, that's a replication of virtual machines. So if I click, the really good option here, really good from an interface perspective, you have really good wizard to configure that. Of course, for the exam, you may have questions about to configure something that already configured, and you need to be aware with other menus. But for the initial configuration, wizard is really good. So what I want to backup, I want to backup virtual machines in Azure or file shares or SQL database in Azure, or I want to backup something that on premises or in Azure Stack. Let me choose Azure first, click backup. And then I need to just define my policy, and this policy I will backup data on virtual machines. I will start for 2 days. I can retain instant recovery snapshot for 2 days, and retain backup taken for, and retain backup for 30 days. I click OK here, and choose virtual machines that can be backed up. No virtual machines selected. I believe it's because of subscription. I think I don't have any subscription in this, and the virtual machines in this subscription. So that's a backup for our machines in Azure. But if I want to backup something that on-premise, I can do it as well. And here, the big difference, what I want to backup. If I want to backup just files and folders, then I click Prepare Infrastructure, and it will ask me to download agent. So just an agent, and I need to download Vault credentials and register my server to Azure. That's quite simple. I'll just click download here, click save, and I have my recovery vault credentials, and I download agent, click save and run, and install it really quickly. Click next, click next, click no, next. Let me wait a couple of seconds. And hopefully we'll finish soon. Please wait. And it has to be, yeah. So I click register. I can browse my credentials to my download folders. Click here, click next, and I need to generate an encryption phrase. That's really important, by the way, that it will be encrypted. This backup will be encrypted, and if you lose your encryption credentials, then Microsoft won't help you. So I need to save this passphrase somewhere here. So please don't lose that stuff. And registering my server in Azure Backup. So quite straightforward. So let me jump back. But what if I want to backup not only files and folders, I want to backup virtual machines or SQL, Exchange, and so on. So in this case, when I click Prepare Infrastructure, I will need to download the same agent and the vault credentials as well, but I need to download no, I don't need an agent. I need to download Microsoft Azure Backup Server. So Microsoft Azure Backup Server, the separate server, they need to download and install on a separate virtual machine. And this server is similar to System Center DPM. So, System Center DPM. And by the way, if you already have DPM, you can use your DPM instead of Azure Backup Service. So you can I can put an equal sign between them, Azure Backup Server. The biggest difference that Azure Backup Servers doesn't work with tapes, but everything else, and Azure Backup Server doesn't work with cluster, but everything else is the same. So technically, System Center DPM and Azure Backup Server, they are the same. And if you already have DPM, you can just install Agent on your DPM, and it will work in the same manner as Azure Backup Server. So it will back up in the cloud. So if you already have DPM. And by the way, some third-party servers like Symantec, for instance, or Beam Backup, they can work with Azure Backup as well. So if you use some third parties. So finished. Yep. As you can see, I have my agent here. So let me register my server. Next, I already have it. So I already have it. Let's try to schedule some backup. Okay, and that's not, and here it's a normal backup process. Click next. But you should be aware of this menu because on the exam you might have questions about for how long you may retain your backup and so on. So please make sure that you remember this process and all the details here. And let me show you that now I have backup items. Not yet. So I don't have, I have backup infrastructure. And yeah, I have some backup agents, but I don't have items for backups because I didn't do any backup. I didn't configure any backup, but I do have some agents. So that's about backup. Quite straightforward, quite simple process, but please follow that process and try it yourself. Try it with Azure resources, try it with on-prem resources. And what you can also have here in this vault, another service called Site Recovery. Site Recovery, that's a more complicated service. And with Site Recovery, you may replicate your virtual machines from on-premise environment to Azure, or from one data center of Azure to another data center of Azure. So I have two options. Let me, as usual, follow the first simple option, where your virtual machine is located in Azure. Click OK. Click OK here. And so I don't need to prepare any infrastructure here because it's all in Azure. So I need to prepare application. And in this case, I just choose my VMs in West Europe, for instance. Click OK. But I don't have lots of VMs in the subscription. I think I don't have any VMs in the subscription. Let me create a recovery vault really quickly. Another subscription that I have VMs. So let me go to recovery service vaults. Click new one. Here, AZE 100 demo as usual. And click create. So fingers crossed, it has to be quick. Hopefully. Nope. What's going on? Not really helpful. Oh, provider not registered. What is that? What provider? At least one provider didn't register, but what provider? Deployment failed. I don't see what provider is. Maybe this one. Let's try to fix it really quickly. If not, we'll move on. Let me go there. As you can remember, on our first session, we talked about providers, and I mentioned that usually you don't need to care about them, and they register just automatically. So let's see. Recovery. I don't. Let's try to filter that recovery. Recovery service. Oh, that's in the process of registering. It's time or stuck. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a small problem with Azure, or maybe just need time to register this provider. All right. Let me just get back to process and let's explain to you in this menu. Where's my vault? So go back to site recovery. And here you can click prepare infrastructure. web infrastructure is quite straightforward if you use Azure, but no, for Azure to Azure. So you just can replicate your virtual machines from one data center to another. That's not more than that. But if I want to replicate my machines from on-prem, here I have much more options and much more configurations. So first I need to choose a hypervisor, maybe Hyper-V or VMware or not virtualized. Let me choose Hyper-V first. It's the simplest option. Do you have VMM or not? We don't. Click OK. So do you want, and here it's really important to do capacity planning. And you may have to on the exam this type of questions, so I will do it later. But if you click do, then you'll download some Excel files and some scripts to check your resources. It will analyze how you consume your resource on-prem, and it'll give you some recommendations what to do in Azure. So please follow that to be prepared to the exam. It's quite important. It takes time, but so I will skip it right for now. But I think I have. Give me a second. I think I have one report. Let me just check quickly. I believe I have it. It has to be our ISR deployment plan. That's a template. And where's the output? So that I think it has to be here, profile data. Yeah, it is. And my report is here. Let's see. It works a bit slow. I don't know why, but anyway. So it has to it first analyze my infrastructure for a period of time, and then I can get a report about my virtual machines. So that's general dashboard, and I can jump from one tab to another. I can see storage options, compatible VM, what can VM be compatible with Azure, what is not compatible with Azure, my all fine, and it also can give you cost estimation based on your infrastructure. So yeah, you have lots of options here. So please try it yourself, because it will take too much time if I'm gonna show you right now. But please do it. Then I have to add Hyper-V site. I think mine is not disconnected, so just add new Hyper-V site and just give a name. And then I need to add Hyper-V server. And to add Hyper-V server, I need to download the agent. It's called Microsoft Azure Site Recovery Provider. And as usual, download service registration and give him service registration. And then it will see your hypervisor. And on next wizard, here in the replicate application, you'll see a virtual machine, and you'll just check the box and say replicate this machine to Azure. And in your hypervisor, I'll connect again. This hypervisor is connected to my my real world subscription, so I don't want to show it to you. It's not my demo, but let me just show you some how it may look like in Hyper-V. So if I click here, I have a replication here. So this replication is paused at the moment. But if I go to replication, I can see that my server replicate this machine to Azure, and these machines are replicated to Azure as well. So it uses Hyper-V Replica to replicate my virtual machines to Azure. And then I can restore my VMs from my recovery vault to Azure and run them in Azure. So I may use it, generally speaking, Azure Site Recovery using to have like a second data center. And I can just run my virtual machines in case I have problems on premises. But Azure Site Recovery is a really popular service to do migration from my on-prem to Azure. So I replicate my virtual machines, and then I run into Azure and shut down my VMs on-prem. So that's for Hyper-V. But if I go to Prepare Infrastructure again and choose my VMware, click OK. I'll do it later again. And in this case of VMware, I need to use extra software to replicate my virtual machines to Azure, because when I use my Hyper-V, Hyper-V use native Hyper-V in this case, Azure will use native Hyper-V feature called Hyper-V Replica to replicate virtual machines. But in case of VMware, it has to use something else to replicate machines, because VMware doesn't have Hyper-V Replica. So in this case, we deploy a configuration server. Let me just click here. As a separate virtual machine, so let me click here, download virtual server machine template. So I deployed a separate virtual machine. And this server will be connected to vCenter, and this server will get your virtual machines from vCenter, and will send this virtual machine to Azure. So it will just get all the configurations, all the memory of this virtual machines, and send these virtual machines this information to Azure, and create a virtual machine in Azure from scratch. But if you want to go fail back to on-prem, you need to have configuration server in Azure that will do it in vice versa. So it will get virtual machines from Azure and send it to on-prem. So in this case, when you have a configuration server in your vCenter, then you just go to your replicate application, and you'll see your virtual machines as well. Okay. So that's about site recovery and backup services. Please try it yourself. It's really important. You will have questions on exam, probably will have questions, and because this option, they're not really these services. What is difficult with these services? They have lots of options, so please make sure that you know how to configure that, how to restore virtual machines. And in here in virtual machines, you also have some scripts that you may configure to, for instance, order of restore. And for instance, first you want to restore DC, then restore SQL, then restore your app, and you can configure this restore in order. Please make sure that you know how to do that. All right, so we have a couple of more services: network routing, load balancers, and Azure Traffic Manager. So let's talk about them. Let's see, traffic management. Let's talk first about routing. We have default routes in Azure Virtual Networks, and we don't see these default routes. For instance, when you create your virtual network, just this VM in Azure. So this VM that I work from, it's in Azure, but I do have an access to internet. Why? Because my virtual network has a default route to internet. If you're familiar with Amazon, in Amazon we have to create manually a route to internet, but in case of Azure we don't need to. We already have a default route to the internet. So generally speaking, we have all the routes. Oh, by the way, do you remember our network peering yesterday? Everything was fine, but the problem was with firewall, so that's why pinging didn't work. So when we create a network peering, it creates routes for us. So it has all the routes we need generally. But if you want to create our custom routes and we will control behavior of routes, we can. Oh, sorry about that. That's the wrong slide. But if you want to control our route and behavior, we can create our user-defined route. And sometimes, for some reasons, we may need to create our user-defined route to support some service. For instance, if I want to have a route to a virtual appliance, I can create a route manually. So anyway, you can create additional routes, custom routes, in Azure. Microsoft did everything for us to make it work without our custom routes, user-defined routes, but for some reasons you may need to create your user routes. So you can do it. Let me show you how to do that. So example, just show you. To create a route, first you need to create a route table. Route tables. Oh no, I missed that. It's the wrong link. Route table. Route tables. Click add. Let me call it as usual AZ103 demo. And let's choose resource group, AZ103, usual West Europe, and click create. Is it here? Okay, and as you saw there, I didn't comment that. Let me just show you. So there's an option called Virtual Network Gateway Route Propagation. Virtual Network Gateway Route Propagation. So it means that it can propagate a route table for other network connected here to connected via virtual network gateway. So it can propagate existing routes to other networks. So I create just a route table, and then I can click demo, then address prefix and next hop. Next hop will be internet or virtual network or virtual network gateway or virtual appliance. And let's say that I want to forward all the traffic, for instance, from network 1.0.0.0/24 to a network virtual appliance, and the address virtual appliance, for instance, will be 10.0.0.250, just for instance. And in this case, all the traffic from here will go from this network, from this address prefix, go as a next hop to this virtual appliance. So just create a route table. And then I need to associate this route with my subnet. Of course, my address space and my destination address, I just chose them randomly, so they're not connected with any subnet, so I can pick up any subnet. But generally, choose the subnet I want this route to work. My default subnet. Click OK. Of course, I have different address ranges, so my routes now are quite weird, but I think you got an idea. Let me just show you that I already have a route pre-created that works. And this route, that's the normal route, and in this route, I associate with one of the subnets, and this route sends all the traffic to my virtual appliance, and my virtual appliance is firewall. So in this case, 0.0.0.0/0 means that all traffic except default routes. So all traffic except defaults will go to next hop as a to the virtual appliance. That's my firewall. Okay. And by the way, we have a default route to the internet, so it will override my default route to internet, but it won't override my routes inside of my virtual network. So that's about it. That's about routes and route tables. Just make sure you know how to configure that. But generally speaking, in normal situation in Azure, we don't need to configure that. Can be deleted. First, I had to dissociate this from the network. So if we compare with AWS, when you need to configure a route to have access to the internet, in Azure, you don't need. You have an access to the internet. Microsoft creates lots of default routes for you to not configure it user-defined, but if you need, you may create your user-defined route. If you need to control the route behavior, you can do it. All right, so we have two more services, Azure Load Balancer and Azure Traffic Manager. Let me jump to slides and talk about Load Balancer, and then I will show you Traffic Manager as well. So Load Balancer. Load Balancer, that's just a service that balances load between your backends, so between virtual machines or any other stuff. And we have different type of load balancers. Public load balancer, that's like a front end that can balance your requests from the internet. And the difference between public load balancer and internal load balancer, that public load balancer has external IP address, public IP address. And so it accepts traffic from the internet and balance your traffic between your VMs. VMs may not have public IP, so it's a really good deal when they don't have public IP. So only load balancer has public IP address. But internal load balancer doesn't have public IP address, and internal load balancer usually for internal resources or for VPN connectivity. What does it mean internal resource? If I have 3 tiers three tiers up, I have front end, and I have up tier, and I have DB tier, and I can use load balancer, internal load balancer, to balance my up tier, to balance my DB tier, so tiers that don't have to be available from the internet. Or I can use internal load balancer in case I have VPN connection from my environment to Azure, and in this case I could just use my internal IP addresses to connect to my load balancer. So in this case, this load balancer won't be exposed to the internet. So in load balancer, we have different SKUs. So we have two types of SKUs, basic and standard. What's the difference between basic and standard? First of all, basic is free. That's amazing because you know if we compare to other vendors, they have all load balancer. You have to pay for the load balancer in any SKUs, but in Azure, basic load balancer is free. But of course, basic load balancer has some limitations. So let's check Azure load balancer SKUs, and let's see what limitation it has. And for real-world implementation, where's the table? Okay, so here you go. In a real world, quite often we need to choose a standard load balancer for, I don't want to call them large, for just average implementation. First of all, standard load balancer supports more instances, but 100 instances is fine too. But here, when we talk about basic, when we talk about basic SKU, it doesn't work with availability sets. It only works with virtual machine in a single availability set or virtual machines in scale sets. It doesn't work with multiple availability sets. And as a health probe, we cannot use HTTPS for basic SKUs. What else? It doesn't work with availability zones. Oh, that's the biggest problem. Why usually we have to use standard SKUs. We cannot use HA port for basic SKUs. What does it mean, HA port? In case of basic SKU, you can only use one port for balancing. You cannot use multiple ports for balancing. So that's the big reason. And then it may be fine if you have an application with one port and you just want to know balance just one port. It's fine for that. But if you want to have balance multiple ports, then you need to use HA ports, and HA ports available only for standard SKU. All right, so just make sure that you know the difference between standard SKU and basic SKU. So let me just move on here. And when we use load balancers, we have to configure backend pool. Backend pool, that's our virtual machines or websites or anything else that will be balanced. So we can configure backend pool, and then we configure rules how to make a balancing on what's for what servers port. I'm going to show it to you quite soon. And you can also configure, if you wish, session persistence, or in other providers called sticky sessions. Doesn't mean it means that this balancer can have persistent, can give the same node for the same client, because we assume that the session of this client may be on that node. It's not a really good practice. It's only for apps that relies on these sessions. But generally, it's better to manage sessions with some have a state. If you don't have a stateless application, it's better to manage sessions with some external resource like database, Cosmos DB, and not to manage session on the node itself. But that's about more about architecture, so I don't want to talk about that a lot. So we have here a rule, session persistence. That's when we can configure session affinity. So let me show you load balancer really quickly. Then we'll go to traffic manager. I believe I have load balancer. If not, I will show you gateway. It's similar. Load balancers. No, I don't. Let me create a new one. All right, so let me give you a name as usual. I'm gonna choose the name as 0. It will be public or internal, so SKU will be basic or standard. And if it will be public, so I need to create a public IP. I call it LBIP, and assignment will be dynamic or static. Click next, and click ribbon create. What else? Oh, research group. And click create. I hope it will be quick, it will be fast, but let me just show you my, oh, that's already created. So let me go to my balancer. And I need to configure a couple of settings here. So I already have my IP configuration. Now let me go to backend pool and click add backup pool. And in backup pool, I have to, let me call it my backup. And I have to say what will be backup pool for me. Availability set, or virtual machine, or virtual machine scale set. For me, let me go to some simple virtual machine. It's kind of weird to have just one virtual machine as a backup pool, but anyway. So let me click OK. In this case, I can just in this case, there's only meaning to do that on one virtual machine if I have virtual machine with couple with number of adapters, and I can distribute load between network adapters. But anyway, so I create a backup pool. Then let me go to my health probe, and here I may configure what port I want to see. So health. So I will use TCP protocol, of course, for that. But or maybe HTTP doesn't really matter for me at the moment. My load balancer works on the 4th level, so I may use any protocol I want for that. So port 80, and interval is 5 attempts in 5 seconds. And if then if 2 times in a row it won't give me a reply, then I believe that this virtual machine, this backend instance fall down, and I need to distribute load to some other instances. I can adjust this stuff if I wish. Okay, let me click here. I can also add some load balancer rules. So this rule will collect everything together, combine everything together. Let me call it as usual. Let me go just rule. So here for this front-end IP, for this port, and for this backend pool, and for this health probe, I create a rule without session persistent. I'll just create a rule for distribution. And let me just go to my inbound net rules, click here. And I can do some NAT modification, some NAT to to publish my VMs or any other instances that behind of the load balancer we are not. I don't need it for load balancer, but generally I can use some NAT rules for that. So that's generally it, and now I can have balancing for my single VM, but generally we configure that. And let me just show you the real example. Application gateway, I think. That's the balancer, but on a seventh layer called application gateway. So that's similar, but in case of application gateway, I can have balancing on the seventh layer. But for me, the biggest difference. So as you can see here, it's not just a protocol, but I can use some cookie-based affinity and stuff like that. I can use it with path. So it's a bit different. If I go to my health probe, you can see here some additional configurations for HTTP responses. So if it returns me 200 or 400, it will be different for me. So it's a second layer load balancer. So if I need on the second layer, seventh layer, I can use application gateway for that. But what we also can have, application gateway can work as a web application firewall, but that's out of scope of this exam. But just be aware that we can use as a standard or as WAF. And in this case of WAF, it will be a web application firewall and protect my web application from a different attack. All right, so that's about load balancers, and we have one more topic called Traffic Manager. Let me talk about that. So Traffic Manager, that's a DNS service that can distribute traffic between endpoints, and usually we use some geographic locations and some sites as endpoints. So we don't use usually just servers as endpoints because Traffic Manager is more static. For instance, if we have load balancer, and load balancer will dynamically work with scale sets. For instance, we have scale sets with with 2 VMs, but then number of VMs may increase, and load balancer will be aware of that. But Traffic Manager works with static instances. So it's meaningless to use Traffic Manager with scale sets. We use Traffic Managers with load balancers usually. So we have number of load balancers, and we use Traffic Manager to distribute load between load balancers. I hope it was clear, hopefully. So it's more about, it's a DNS service that sends the load between different load balancers, and these load balancers may be in a different regions, different sites. And to distribute this load, we have to create a policies. And we have a number of policies. Let me just show you that. I think I have this demo pre-configured. Let me try to show that. Go to traffic manager profiles. I don't have any profiles, but if I go to my resource groups, three. I have number of apps. Oh, no, don't do that, please. I have number of apps with different addresses in different regions. Let's see. Why so slow? Where's my address for this app? Oh, here we go. So this app is in the USA. I believe they have similar addresses, so let me just change here. This app in Netherlands. This app in Australia. And another app I have on a Dutch language. Yep. Hello. I don't know Dutch. So we have a number of apps here. So let's try to play with them with Traffic Manager and Traffic Manager rules. I will try to simulate different connectivities, but just be aware that traffic, it's quite hard to simulate this request because browser cache them, and when I try to even if I press Shift F5, it won't send me to another application. So I will try to simulate it from different locations, from different virtual machines, and I will periodically clean browser cache. I think I have this virtual machine here. Let me connect to virtual machine in the US. I have no idea why it's so slow now. So let me click save, click open, connect. And let's start to configure my traffic manager, and then we'll try to simulate. So traffic manager profiles. And create traffic manager profile. So I need to create a traffic manager profile to distribute load. And let me give a name. First of all, different routing methods. We have them a lot. Let me show to you first Azure Traffic Manager profiles, methods. So here you can have a description of all the methods. What is the difference between each of them? Let me talk about them really quickly. So priority means that I can set priorities. So one of my points will be the most prioritized, and others. And if it works, then Traffic Manager will not send traffic to other locations. But if my first priority will fail, then traffic manager will send the traffic to the second point that has second priority. And if this fails, then it will send traffic to the third one. Weighted, it's when I can distribute load between my points and I can set weights. Performance means the closest location to me. Geographic means based on my country, and it's really good to send to different language pages. And multi-value, when we can use some IP address as an endpoint and subnet as an endpoint. Let me just try to play with some of those profiles. Let me just try to first try priority. So I'm gonna go to priority. AZ 103 priority. And let me create that. So go to resource and go to endpoints. Let me add an endpoint. And this endpoint in Europe, but let me say that I think I need to have app service here. And let me say that my United States will be the first priority. It's called US, and it will be priority number 1. Then the second priority will be Australia. Australia. Oh no, they have the same priority. They have to be different. And the third one will be European Union. And I'm currently in European Union. My virtual machine in European Union, but it will send me to US first. So let's try to simulate it. So we go to this address, and I expect I want to see United States. Yep. Hello from USA. And if I go to this application, oh, here, go to my instance. Can I go there from here? No, I cannot. I can't. So let's go to my instance. Come on. Let's go to United States, US instance. And let me stop it. I know what's going on today with this speed of that Azure portal. It's incredibly slow. So let me click stop, click yes. It stopped. So I expect I had to get to Australia. No, because my browser cached it. Let's try to new product window. It's they sent me to the United States, but it doesn't work. Let me try to do it from another workstation. And welcome to Australia. As you can see here, of course, if I tap on Australian, it will send me to European Union, of course. So that's the priority policy, priority profile. Let me go back and play with another policy, and then I'll go to wrap up because we don't have much time. We have only 5 minutes to finish our session. So let me just get rid of that. delete this profile, create a new profile. Let's call it AZ demo country, based on geography. MyZ103, click create. Go to resource and go to endpoints, click add. I want to say that it will be Azure endpoint based on country, and it will be app services. And here I will have European Union, no, not European Union. I will have Dutch. And here I would say that when I from Europe, connect from Netherlands, I want to go to this Dutch website. I called it incorrectly, but anyway, let's call it all. Now let's click app service. Let's go to United States for all others, for all the whole world except Netherlands. I will go to United States. Let me try to play with that again. So if I open up my browser here, let me do it from another workstation. So I'm gonna go to this address, and if I try to reach it from here, welcome to USA. But when I try to do it from the Netherlands, fingers crossed, yep, it sent me to Netherlands for a different language page. So that's the traffic manager. We have lots of policies, so please play with them because they're quite different, but they're quite straightforward. All right, so that's about traffic manager. Let me really briefly go through practice question, and I will wrap up the session. So you need to configure alert triggered when disk space and Azure VM is low. What resource you need to choose to configure this type of alert? That's for Log Analytics Workspace. What may be source of Azure Site Recovery Replication? Choose all that apply. Almost everything except Red Hat. So we may replicate from Azure, we can replicate from VMware, we can replicate from Hyper-V. Question number 3, you deploy Azure Application Gateway and you want to use it as WAF. What should you configure? We didn't talk about that a lot, but of course you need to configure some backend pool listeners, and you have to say that it will be WAF, not standard application gateway. You're in SQL on-premise and in Azure VMs. What tool should you implement to back up your workloads to Azure? Choose all. That Azure backup, or if you have System Center Data Protection Manager, you can use System Center DPM. And the last one, what routing method in Traffic Manager sends traffic to users' country region? And of course, it's geographic routing. All right, so I hope this session was informative. We perfectly on time now, almost perfectly, because we have some wrap up and questions afterwards about this session. So let me just start to share my screen, wrap up my session, and I have one question and Q&A from the same participant that we want to communicate via email, so I will answer your question via email. So we'll talk about via email. All right. So thank you for your participation. This session was about monitoring, alerts, network watching, backup, and traffic management. My suggestion to you, as usual, once again, do it yourself, try it yourself. Because as I mentioned before, on exam, we have questions like how to configure that, and we have labs. And to configure lab, to complete lab properly, complete tasks in the lab, you have to know how to do that, because in the real world, when we do something and we don't remember how to do that, we can just Google that. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, you cannot do it when you do an exam. You have to remember how to configure something. Or unless, of course, you can go to the portal and jump from one menu to another, and you may find what you're looking for. And sometimes I do that. Usually, I can do that. I do that because I don't remember exactly how to do that. But when I see it on the portal, I remember. But you cannot Google. You cannot use Google or any other searches. All right. Hope it was informative for you. Please, once again, do it yourself, and see you tomorrow on our last webinar. And before you go, please fill some survey by Devyani. Devyani, it's your turn.
Thank you so much, Sergey. And as you mentioned, before we proceed to the closing, I would like to ask a couple of questions. The question and the options will appear on your screens now. And the last question will appear on your screens now. Please provide us with the feedback on the session. So with this, we have come to an end of our session today. I would like to thank our presenter, Sergey, for addressing today's topic in such an interesting way and engaging the audience to stay connected with us throughout the session. I would also like to thank our participants for their active participation throughout the session. I hope you enjoyed watching the whole session and, more importantly, have gained insight to Microsoft Azure certification. We'll see you again tomorrow in our final session for AZ-103, which will be managing, securing identities, and governance and compliance. Till then, you all have a wonderful day ahead, and thank you so much for being with us today. Bye-bye.